Well, hello. This is a tutorial kind of video that I'm intending to record right now, if I'm lucky enough to do it. This is my first time recording something to a relatively wide audience, at least more than 3, I guess, maybe 4 people. So, yeah, let's start on that. I've been using the background. By the way, do not get mad at me because I'm using this cloud generated markdown for video script. I do not, some people from the Linux community hate AI, but trust me on that. I read the source code and I died myself, at least the part to how the Bedrock works, and then just at the end of the day poured all my information to the cloud so that it can generate some things for me. I'm going to barely follow that. So I've been using Arch Linux for the past 5 years, and the main reason I was using it was because of the AUR and the setup process it had. That it gave me the bare bones, and then I can build upon that. Maybe someone would argue that Void or some other distribution is more minimal. Yeah, I would probably agree, but that's what I've been accustomed with, and yeah, it has the AUR. So my friend told me about this Bedrock thing, and I thought, yeah, let's give it a try. And I've been using it for the past few days, like maybe 4 or 5, and I'm really, really glad that he found it out because it's so elegant. We implemented, I think, and it works so well. Allows so many different opportunities that are coming up to my mind. Maybe in future videos we will delve more into these, but in this video I just want to go over briefly about how it works, what it is, how to set it up. I'm not going to set it up here, but it's pretty straightforward either, so you don't need some live tutorial to do that. And some of the inner workings that I learned while studying this distribution, or at least as I frame it, a meta Linux distribution, they say in their documentation, which they define as a distribution that allows you to build upon that, your distribution, or some sort of definition maybe. As you can see, Bedrock Linux is kind of like a skeleton around which you customize your own tissue. I guess that's a terrible analogy, but you get the idea. You have a fully customizable thing in its literal sense, because it's just a bunch of shell scripts, little shell scripts. Even the OS installer is not that big. It's a single shell script that unpacks a very small tarball, which you can install from, I guess, here. Yeah, the installation instructions are pretty basic. You just run the script, and once you reboot it, the scripting takes very little time to execute. And once it does its job, you just reboot and it sets it all up in just a minute. And so it's pretty basic. It's just a skeleton, really. And its main aim is to allow you to bring together different parts from other Linux distributions to work together. And it does that seamlessly for the most part. Not for the most part, for all of the parts, as far as I've seen from my past few days of experience. I know that's not much, but yeah, at least you can go on with that for a few days, I guess. How it works. Sorry about that. I'm not really experienced at structuring videos, so it's a little bit all over the place. I know, I'm a bit excited. So here you can see the website. I've already said that you can install the script here, which you can run by running this command, and once you reboot, you're going to have your distribution ready. But before that, you have to install another Linux distribution, and on top of that, you have to do all of these steps, because as we've said, it's a meta Linux distribution, and it works by hijacking, as they name it, the existing system. It's sort of configures it around and installs some of its own programs to make it one of the systems that you can use alongside others, which they call Strata or Stratum. I don't remember which one was the plural one, but they name different Linux distributions you install on the system Stratas or Stratums, whatever they're called. I'm going to call them Strata. They name them Stratas, and their aim is to allow you to run multiple programs in their own environments, in their own Linux distribution environments, and integrate them seamlessly. For example, you can run a, a software from Arch against Debian's libraries, maybe for example, because they're so stable than Arch is. Or you want to switch init systems between different sessions of you using computer, or maybe you want to, as they exemplify here, use the Debian stable core utils, but voids run it in a system, and most importantly for me, Arch AWAR. Actually, the whole reason, the first thing that you know made me want to install this was the ability to use Arch AWAR, both Arch AWAR and Ubuntu's better compatibility with laptop brands and fan control, and especially the gaming, the drivers required for gaming. I've had quite a lot of problems with them on Arch. Not that much, but I presume they're going to be better with Ubuntu. So I'm going to run my root trace on Steam once I configure all of these around on Ubuntu. And yeah, I haven't done much configuring because this is a vanilla Symbian setup. I don't know if you heard that. I've just discovered it. I've been using DWM for the past years, and I've decided to just have more flexibility, easier flexibility, or should I say, and just switch to an awesome port for wavelength. I guess we can frame it that way. So you install this script and run it, and once you reboot, it happens. But how does it work? So when you do all of this, you're going to get a file system like this one. As you can see, nothing much has changed except for that Bedrock folder over there. Why is it different? Now, let me walk through the hijacking process for a bit. Once you have installed your Linux distribution, and on top of that run the Bedrock installation script, Bedrock will copy your root folder basically into a place called /bedrock/strata/ whatever the hijacked system was. In this case, mine was, as you can see, Arch. So it copied all of my Arch root directory into that folder Arch, and then specified in Bedrock's configuration, which you can find here in the etc, I guess, one of the files here. I guess it was in the Bedrock conf. Sorry, it is set. Yeah, they based on the configuration file, Bedrock recognizes these folders must be global, meaning they must be the same for all of the strata installed on the system. Like, you don't want to configure your home folder separately, place every file on your desktop separately to every instance of home in every strata, so that they will all see your configuration files once you run a software from them. Now, you don't want to do that. Instead, they came up with a solution that they separate files into locals and globals. Global folders are once copied from the root folder to this newly created folder inside the Bedrock. They are moved back to the root here, to the actual root. So this home is actually my very home directory that I set up while installing Arch, and this mount as well. But the other ones, the local ones, the ones that have to be distro specific, so that in a lib folder my Ubuntu system would set up its own libraries, its own NVIDIA libraries, and my art system would have its own NVIDIA libraries, so that when I run a program from Ubuntu, it will use its own Ubuntu libraries to execute its thing. That's the whole point of running multiple distributions together. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't say that previously, but that's the whole point, running multiple distributions simultaneously, using as less resources as possible, and integrating them seamlessly. That is the whole point of Bedrock, because you do not use containers here. You do not use any kind of virtual. You get the idea. Okay. You do not use any kind of abstraction software. You do, but it's pretty minimal. You don't even realize it. And when you run a program from one of the strata, it will run from its own environment, and you can even combine these with Unix pipes or whatever, with programs running in different environments, in different stratas. That's the whole beauty of this. So for this to happen, every distro has to have some local files and some global files. Everyone has to access the same home, but everyone has to access different lib, for example, different bin folders. But boot is the same, for example, for all of them. One exception here, the etc folder, as it is known, is a little bit different, because it contains files that are both specific to a distro and global to the whole computer. So what they do here is that they set up an etc file system. They created that using the fuse interface of the kernel, and they mounted every strata's etc folder to that file system, which when a read or write or whatever file syscall is issued, will discern between different types of files. For example, when you are trying to read from etc pass file, this one, it will find only one global etc pass file, and it will return to you that bytes. But if you're trying to, let's say, for example, trying to reach for apt.sources, of course, is non-existent in this place because I'm running on Arch. But let's say this was an Ubuntu booted up computer, it would take that apt sources file from Ubuntu's etc. It will redirect accordingly. So, for example, we have, so it will discern between local and global files here. That's why they implemented a custom etc file system for every etc folder in the specific strata as you have. Another thing you would notice here is both the etc at the root and one at the we don't actually, sorry, let me rephrase it. We do not have any /bedrock /strata /arch /etc file system here. Why? Because you see what Bedrock, I forget the command, what Bedrock does is that it enables one of the stratas as a current strata. It is the strata that you at the login are asked to choose, and you choose one of the init systems listed there, and the init system you choose, whatever strata it is coming from, is your chosen strata for that session of you using your computer. In my case, it's Arch, and once you choose that, Bedrock, before handing over the command to that init system, it will mount all of the local root folders plus etc inside of that strata to the actual root of your disk of your file system, and then it will pivot root into that part of the disk, so that the root from now on will be seen as if it was Arch Linux running on the computer, so all of the programs running on that computer. And since init was started on that very root as well, all of its childs will by default be running in the Arch environment. You can query that by using the command I just did, and you can like, for example, you want to run ls. I'm running ls, and then you can ask Bedrock which one of the stratas is this ls coming from, and it is coming from the Arch, because all of the child processes of the init, of course, is inheriting that property. What if you want to run another command from another strata? You use this command, you type in the strata you want. By the way, these stratas do not have to be Linux distributions. You import these Linux distributions by running fetch, and you can use custom tarbals with import. So it can be any collection of folders as long as you provide a suitable environment for your specific application in that file collection to work with. So it's a pretty flexible, pretty elegant system, I think. You want to run a program from Ubuntu, you say strat Ubuntu, and then you, for example, do like ls. That, for example, you can see is not formatted or colored as my Arch ls says output is, because this is now coming from Ubuntu's ls. Now the strat program inside of itself, whose source code you can read here, Bedrock Userland, is a great repository, and its source code is pretty easy to read. In fact, I've spent quite a lot of time here learning about how the system works. You can read the source code here. It, under the hood, keeps the working directory so that the command you want to run works as you intended, but it runs the command by routing into Ubuntu strata file right at here, that Ubuntu folder, because it is the whole Linux file system that would be in the root if the Ubuntu was installed normally. In order to run ls in that specific environment, strata under the hood roots into Ubuntu in a pretty safe manner, I would say. It has a lot of security stuff going on before the rooting happens and after that, and then it runs the ls command. So from the perspective of the ls command, or whatever command you're running, you're totally in Ubuntu, you're totally in Arch, you're totally in the strata you're running the command for. And as we've said, whatever you type in the terminal, if it's existent in the current strata, it will default to there. And the implementation I think here is beautiful, because there is no like middleware interacting here with the terminal or the shell that is allowing the ls work from the binary located in the Arch strata. It is just that since we are at since all of these directories that are previously mount binded at the startup in the root directory are Arch own folders, they're mount binded to their various location in here in strata/arch. It is just shells. In my case, I guess it was bash. Sorry, I haven't done any configuring. How did we? Okay, bash. More on that cross fs now, right? It's just bash's usual path query that leads to the finding of ls in Arch strata. There's no middleware involved here, so you can, without losing much performance, actually I would say any in a modern machine, you get to run multiple systems together, and you can, if you were to, type out this command and explore the tutorial the developers have provided for us, you would even see there that you can run Unix pipes in between to make them interact and they work seamlessly. And this is a pretty beautiful thing, as we've said. There is no middleware involved. The only case where middleware, I guess you can call it that, would be involved is the case we're going to show here. First, we're going to install Emacs. We're going to do that. I do not have it on my art system, as you can see here. And while this is doing its thing, we are going to be, as you can see, installing it from apt, which is Ubuntu's package manager. There are no other strata in my system that uses the package manager apt, so it is coming from the Ubuntu. Now, it isn't existent in anywhere inside of the Arch file system. So where do we find it? As you can see here, sorry about the brightness. As you can see here, we're finding it at this address here, cd bedrock cross here. What this thing is that it is a special kind of other file system that Bedrock developers had created. As you can see, as you cannot see because I haven't done, I guess, my research properly on that one, but bear me with this CrossFS topic. CrossFS is another file system that, as you can see, acts as a middleware when you're trying to access a software from another strata. It does this by adding this bedrock/bedrock/cross path to the path is path variable we've been using all along to expand our search for different locations when we're trying to run a program simply by writing its name. It adds to that variable the bedrock cross usual Linux or Unix stuff. And when a program is trying to access that cross folder, because it's managed by CrossFS, they're going to send a read query to the CrossFS file system. And what CrossFS file system does is that it scans all of the stratas configured in a line in Bedrock account, and it tries to find in these stratas the program that we have mentioned. We have told the shell to look for, and once it finds one, if it cannot, of course, it will throw an error, but if it finds one, it will return a bouncer file, which will actually be doing the job of essentially this. It will essentially be a binary that will be doing this via exec, I guess, source code, system call, sorry, where the hell did that come from? And thus provide a seamless run of a software from another strata, even if it is not your current strata. So this is the last option your terminal falls back to, because this is one of the last entries added to your path variable, and you can disable specific stratas from being added to that query by, let's just get the help. I'm forgetting the commands, I'm new here. You can remove a strata, just completely delete it by removing that. Once you run that, you're not going to see the Bedrock strata. Once you run that, you're not going to see the Ubuntu here. But with disable, you're going to be able to disable that specific strata for your specific session, that CrossFS will not query it for the files. And you can re-enable that, of course. And at the startup, based on your configuration, all of them are enabled, of course. You can query its status, and once you update your configuration, you have to apply them as well. And you can just, list your status. It's a pretty basic utility that allows to do a lot. That allows you to do a lot by just being a simple shell script of several hundred lines of code. And for example, we can try to run Emacs. As you can see, it cannot find it. We can try to run it with struct Ubuntu Emacs, unable to find the file, and once it's hopefully installed, it will show up here and run as intended. Another thing worth mentioning is, because of course kernels at the startup, it allows that, I guess, as well, to select kernels. You can just do that in your bootloader as well. All of these are ran in the same bootloader kernel and init system that you have selected at your boot up. So you cannot change kernels or init systems mid-session. You have to reboot your computer. So your internet connection, your Bluetooth connection, if they're done by some daemon attached to your init system, they will work all fine across all of your stratas. And another thing I think worth mentioning, just as a fun fact, is that NeoFetch shows this Bedrock thing because it has some specific code to detect Bedrock. As you can see, nothing changes because we're already in Arch. It has some specific code to detect this thing. And I think you can see also this pretty trash recording software that I'm using instead of OBS because I haven't configured anything. I just installed this and excited they start recording the video. I know it's a lot bad in terms of the visual content, the layout, all of the things, and the unplannedness, but I think it can do somewhat of a job for helping people coming to this OS. I'm really glad that I installed this one, and definitely be using it as my main driver. I'm looking at whether we have forgot something. You can see no, this is unrelated. Sorry. Actually, this is the global files. Maybe we might say because this is the list to be bind mounted. Okay. And I think we don't have anything to talk about here. These are just some specific implementation details that we're not going to be going over. And I think one of the things that is also worth mentioning that they use a extended file system attributes API, I guess we might call it that, to name by using the field like so, to name different stratas as enabled, disabled, running, current, etc. They rely heavily on that, so just be aware that it might be useful. The website here is, you can read the documentation of the previous releases. They are wider than the last releases. You can come over here and there is a concepts, theory, and terminology part. Some of the terms I think here are changed. Like for example, the global term I guess was more widely. The utility names. There was a program called VRC. I guess it was. I guess it has been changed with the strat command we've just seen. But other than that, it provides, I think, a great overview of how the system works, the theory and the philosophy behind it. But overall, I think the Bedrock source code is pretty short and easy to understand, and definitely worth reading, especially that init file over here if you want to learn more about the system. And if you don't learn more about the system, you probably won't be able to use it. I'm still in my learning stage, and because it's prone to breaking. No, I would not say that much, but some programs you might install in the future might bring up some compatibility issues because most of the things are configured specifically to work. They handle specifically because all programs are specific. All of them have different things to themselves. So we cannot blame anyone for that. And in fact, they've done a pretty good job at covering most of our daily systems functionality. As you can see, they have a table here, a list of known issues. My system is probably going to work just fine. Which Linux I'm going to. I'm thinking about in the future running maybe Void or Gentoo. I've used Gentoo a bit in the past, for like a few months. It was fine. Maybe some advanced compilation, I will use that. Generally, it's a cool idea, I think. And oh, we had to choose that. So, in Europe. Okay, we're in Istanbul. We have revealed our new location in a city of 40 million people. How amazing is that? Okay, as you can see, it said here running root. So this is was proof. Oh, this error. I've seen a lot about this error, and I will not try to debug that in this video. So hope you learned something or enjoyed the rest. Whatever you wanted to do. This is my first time trying to record a video. It was pretty unplanned. I blame myself as well, but hopefully there will be better videos in the future. So take care for now.